It's only in retrospect that I've come to learn what a towering figure he was in biology, not just in Canada, but around the world. I think his legacy for this country has been enormous.
Nature television pioneer.
We were the first people in the world to show microscopic animals on television.
What can we find? Oh, there's the skeleton of a copepod.
I did 52 quarter-hour programs for children. The pattern was quite interesting.
Hello, boys and girls. Here we are again on Fur and Feathers. Remember last week I promised you I'd introduce you to Willie today? Well, you've just met Willie the Moose.
We had a very bright youngster of about 7 or 8, and every week I confronted him with something he'd never seen before, biological. And his questions were the program.
Was he a species of deer?
Oh, yes, yes. A moose is a deer. In fact, the moose is the largest of all the deer. When he gets full grown, he'll weigh, 1,600 pounds, perhaps a bit. So he's got a long way to go yet. See, he only weighs about 30 pounds at the moment.
I take a baby moose in. I'll add him in the studio. You know, here, a 7-year-old boy seeing his first baby moose. You know, that's fun. And these were all done live, no tape.
In fact, the biggest of all the moose that was ever shot was, actually it wasn't shot, it was found dead, and it had got bogged down in a stream.
My respect for him is just enormous for having recognized the power of television and having gone into that area. Because back in the 60s, you know, scientists, even today, scientists don't think very highly of people that go into the media. It's kind of regarded as that vulgar activity.
To me, it seems that there must be something built in, starts you on an interest track, and I'm sure that must be so. I can remember picking up a bird's egg, for instance, in Scotland when I was less than 3, and I remember going on a walk across the moors with my mother and uncle, and I can remember the rabbits. They were popping in and out of their burrows on either side of the track.
The rock rabbit, or little chief hare, sometimes called a pica. Hungry little beggar, isn't he? See if you can do that with a straw.
Both of the parents, but particularly my mother, believed in encouraging every interest that their young ones showed. Yes. And as soon as I showed interest in something, then my Christmas presents turned out to be books about that topic. I've still got them. The Heart of the Rockies by Henty. These are my friends. I read them and reread them and read them when I was going to sleep as a child, and it was, you know, just tremendous fun. And you got a feel for these creatures. You began to feel like the creatures, and you couldn't get away from it.
Well, Ian was and is still very interested in any creepy crawly, anything that flies and walks, from the smallest bugs and sea anemones to birds. And he, in more recent years, he's worked with other authors to do the major tome on the birds of British Columbia, 4 big volumes.
This is the ornithological history of the province, starting in with the explorers. As I said, it was really a, we all did some of it. It just got toward the end of the, there's Jim Monroe in his younger days. There's my father-in-law, Kenneth Racy. This is the story of all of them and their contributions.
That's you.
That's me.
What's your favorite?
That's very difficult to say. My favorite species, I suppose, would be, I'd be hard-pressed to find a more interesting one than the Clark's nutcracker. It lives where I like to be in the mountains, high up, and it has some amazing capacities to survive. Lives largely on the seeds of the large seeded pines like the whitebark.
Today, we visit the roof of the world.
When I came out of Berkeley, I was about as good as I was going to get on the other into a field situation. There was a man by the name of Gibson. He gave me the contract to do the first. He assigned to carry me around Jimmy Simpson, who was a guide of long standing. It was just wonderful. That's old Jimmy Simpson when he was in his declining years. He was well over 80 at that time. In those months that I spent out with him, I learned how to translate my book learning into field situations. He had his 67th birthday with me on the trail. We climbed the cairn that evening. It was a beautiful evening on the top of Cairn Pass. And we sat there, and we could look out down the hill, and there was a small group of elk, all mostly bulls, a few dry cows. And there were 143 sheep. I can remember them to this day. It was a marvelous evening because, you know, sitting quietly, people don't understand wilderness unless they've experienced it.
One of his themes was to try to get specimens out of boxes, out where the public could actually see them, as we can see in the Royal BC Museum nowadays.
I really stretched what a museum was all about. This museum was about stuff in drawers. I started a study of deer right away at the beginning. And my first major paper was published in the Journal of Ecological Monographs. And it was on the use of plants by deer.
The mule deer is a browser. It prefers to browse on the green deciduous vegetation, the trees that lose their leaves in the winter. But when they're all gone, it has to forage for a living on the Douglas firs and the pine trees.
It was an interesting place, but here I was, 9 years university and a PhD degree. My annual salary, was $1,200. I heard that there was changes to be made at the university because McLean Fraser was retiring. Well, about a week later, there was a knock on my door at the office at the museum. I opened the door, and there was Klink, the president of the university. He was on a recruiting campaign. He sat opposite me in my office, and we yarned for half an hour or more. And then he said, well, I like what I see. If you want to join me, you're invited. He said this would be the first wildlife program in Canada, first wildlife at any university. So we set about to try and hire people. I taught 2 courses. I taught one in the biology of the vertebrates, and then the other one on the applied side.
I was a young assistant professor at the University of Alberta in 1962 when Ian Mctaggart-Cowan was the head of zoology, and he hired me. But I didn't pay much attention to Mctaggart-Cowan's area of interest or the research he had done. It's only in retrospect that I've come to learn what a towering figure he was in biology, not just in Canada, but around the world. He had some of the top students who have become outstanding biologists who've gone to Africa, South America, all over the world. And I think his legacy for this country has been enormous.